Hi, I'm Cassie.
And I'm Mariah.
And this is the Cassie and Mariah Show, a podcast where two long-distance internet friends, that's us, discuss navigating their 20s through disability and chronic illness. Mariah, what's up? It feels like it's been 10 years, but I think I've just lived a lot of life.
But I feel like we went through this week where I feel like we didn't talk to each other enough this week or even send audio messages too much back and forth.
I miss you.
I love you and I miss you. So I wonder if that's why. But anyway, my week's been going good. I kind of got back into routinely making stuff for vendor events and markets and stuff. I actually made a new display piece for my table. I have these clear acrylic they're they're originally to put earrings on, and then it spins. But I got little wall hooks and pin backs, and I put a bunch of hooks on the rack instead. So this way, when I hang, because I hang necklaces on there, so I have my necklaces in little plastic packaging, and I have a hole punched through the top of it, so I am able to hang the necklaces on there. And because what I did before was I used these silver clips to clip the necklace to the plastic, and the issue that I was having was the clips were leaving teeth marks on the plastic, and to me it just looked ugly, and I hated that because I was also afraid of it tearing a hole in it or just screwing with the cord of the necklace. So I thought of this idea of to take the plastic piece I already have and then just put a bunch of hooks in them with pin backs on the back to hold the hook in place, and then to hang the necklaces instead. And I tried it yesterday at the market that I was at, and I think it looked really good. It had a really good functionality purpose of someone being able to just take the piece off themselves to look at it and then to put it back on themselves. Where usually before people would be hesitant to take the necklace off because you had to undo the clip, and they felt like they weren't allowed to do to take it off. So at least the hook kind of lets a little bit more of a more user-friendly experience for the person that's shopping at my table. And so, yeah, I was really glad with those. I made 2 of them, so they're really cute, and they just I was oh, feels a little bit of an upgrade. I made some new bracelets that have just some colorful mushroom beads on them.
They're so cute.
Thank you. And I got these little sterling silver beads that will go around the bracelet knot, where the elastic is, because my thing is that when I would make bracelets, I hated that you could see the knot of the elastic. I also just felt it just looked ugly. It kind of just looked a little bit it just didn't look an aesthetically pleasing. So I ended up getting these sterling silver beads to put over them, and it makes it look really cute. And I also think it kind of reinforces the knot a little bit more, so it's not going to fall apart if you stretch it too much. So that was a really positive part of the week, was just being able to brainstorm that idea. And I don't know, whenever I come up with new stuff for markets or inventory, it really lights a fire in me. And I'm maybe I don't hate doing my business. Maybe I just don't feel inspired enough. And when I do feel inspired, it makes me, able to have these experiences and these lessons that I learn that make me enjoy doing this. I also went to see Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse this weekend. I saw it not only once, but I saw it twice within 24 hours of seeing it the first time. I actually went with the same friend both times, except the second time I went with her sister and her cousin. And it was just kind of this we saw it the first time, and the movie is 2 hours and 16 minutes. And that's a long time to be in the movie. And for the first showing that we went to, I ate my entire bucket of popcorn within the first half hour of the movie. And I was disgustingly full the entire time.
Oh, no.
Where I got home and I was I can't even eat dinner. I'm literally so full of my large popcorn and my Reese's Pieces that I feel disgusting. So, but I did enjoy the movie nonetheless. This isn't a spoiler, but I was I genuinely enjoyed both times seeing the movie. But the first time, I didn't know that there's a new thing that movies do nowadays where everything is set up for a trilogy series. So the first Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse leaves there's a big fight scene, but then it's resolved, and there's this post-credit scene that's like to show like, oh, okay, there's another Spider-Man that's coming after, you know, the Miles Morales Spider-Man, that, you know, the main protagonist of the Across the Spider-Verse or Into the Spider-Verse movie. So the second movie you go into it and you're like, okay, I know like this guy is looking for Miles, or like this, whatever. But like at the end of the movie, you don't get this like big explosive fight because they leave you on a cliffhanger. So the next movie, the third movie that's coming out next year, will be that big fight that they were anticipating. And to me, that feels so empty because it's like, when going into the movie, I didn't realize that there was going to be a third one. So like at the end of the movie, I was like, so what happens? Like, you know, now we got to wait a full year to figure out like, you know, the big fight. And I think that kind of just leaves a lot of like, you know, a lot of assumptions. And it's also just like makes you like, although it's like a great movie, you kind of leave it like not feeling fulfilled in that way because you're like, okay, well now I got to like wait till next year. And if you were like me who like went in there without knowing that there's a third movie coming out, you kind of just like, yeah, you just like don't feel like this, you know, this big ending was like deserved. Especially because I think the first Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, I think that came out in like 2018. So it's been a while. So the next movie, the third movie, is going to come out in March 2024, which is surprising because it's like, that's less than a year from now. But it's also just like, it's the going from like having this, the first movie and the second movie having a huge gap, and then to like not have anything after the second movie, and then like, you know, having now a year that you're looking forward to the third one. It's kind of like, I don't know, the way that they do movies nowadays is crazy. I hate it. I hate that you can't just see a movie. It has everything set up to have an extra one after it.
That's annoying. I wonder though if between the first and second, if COVID threw things off and so now they're able to catch up. But yeah, no, that is really annoying. I feel like I guess I don't see enough movies to know, but I feel like that, like, I don't know, I guess I'm usually only really okay with that sort of suspense for watching shows. Like, right, where you'll see the next episode next week. Like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of, like, you know, movie series I've watched. I feel like I haven't watched a lot. Most movies I've seen are one-offs. Mm-hmm. Yeah, my best comparison would be how Cars 2 had nothing to do with the first Cars movie, but then Cars 3 was the real follow-up.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, Cars 2 I felt like could have been like a mini episode type of thing.
It could have just been a spin-off, you know?
Exactly.
Cars International Espionage. I don't know.
Right?
Espionage.
No, I get that. Well, like, I also finished the show Yellow Jackets this week, which was a long time coming because I knew there was a bunch of episodes I had to catch up on. And that show doesn't really live on... That show's another one where, like, it didn't really have that much of a satisfying ending to the second season. I guess because you would like it to have some type of, like, there's this, like, big moment, but you're like, I kind of wish that they almost, like, left that on a cliffhanger, but they didn't. So it's kind of just, but like the same thing where it's like, sometimes it works for TV shows, but sometimes it doesn't work for movies because, like, you know, movies take so much longer to come out. And TV shows, it's kind of like, of course they're going to leave something to hang on, so this way you watch the next season. Whereas, like, with movies, if you assume, like, if you don't know that there's another movie coming out, then you kind of just don't know what, like, you know, you kind of just, like, don't know what's going to happen next, and you kind of just don't know when they're going to get to that. But it's also a big thing that they do with, like, superhero movies. Like, that's why I kind of don't want to watch any Marvel movies, because I tried watching, like, the Tom Holland's, like, Spider-Man's movies, but, like, in the first Spider-Man movie, Homecoming, it doesn't explain how Tom Holland became Spider-Man. Because you just start off with him being Spider-Man because they explained it in another movie that's, like, not a Spider-Man movie. So I'm like, okay, like, that loses me. Like, I have no interest in this, like, genre of films because I don't want to watch, like, 3 movies to understand one. I don't know. I hate that. I know some people love that. They love having the whole cinematic universe. But I think that's only funny if it's, like, a person unrelated, like, you know, when we say the Cassie cinematic universe, like, yes, that's funny. But the Marvel cinematic universe is cringe. That's annoying.
You heard it here first, folks.
But other than that, I've just been playing Tears of the Kingdom a whole bunch, which love so much. I just beat, like, there's like 4 temples in the game, and I beat 3 so far, so I have to beat 1 more, and then I have to do more exploring and shit like that. But I got the Master Sword. I got the Master Sword back. So, you know, I just feel like that game takes up so much of my time. I think I have close to like 90 hours on it so far.
Whoa. The real screen time.
Yeah, because I was going to say, like, my screen time's low on my social media apps, but it's because my Switch screen time is like 8 hours a day. So, you know, we're prioritizing gaming, and it seems to be improving the mental health and the morale. So anything to get those numbers up. But anyway, Cassie, what's been going on with you? How are you doing?
Oh, just 1,000 things going on.
Yes.
Literally can't believe how much I did in the past week on top of school. I'm yawning just thinking about it. Last weekend, we went and visited my grandparents for a belated Mother's Day, which was fun. And then during the week, I went to a retirement surprise for somebody at my high school, who I'm sort of still in touch with. And I hadn't been to my high school since they, like, redid it. So that was weird. And then also just seeing people I haven't seen in years was weird. And also just being in my high school was weird. But it was good. And then I went to a Portland Thorns game, which is our women's professional soccer team here. I was also taught this week that it's not field, it's pitch, and it's not game, it's match. I'm a poser, and I'm proud to say it because I just can't be bothered. I can't.
I was going to say, that stadium that you posted pictures of looked beautiful, though.
Apparently, they just redid it, like, they just finished redoing it, like, last year. I don't know. I apparently have no idea what's happening at any given time, but soccer is fun. They be kicking that ball and shit into the net.
Hell yeah.
Very fun. Except for I ate some mac and cheese at the stadium, and I didn't take a Lactaid pill, and... Anyway, long train ride, man. Listen, I forget that real mac and cheese and Kraft mac and cheese are not the same experience.
No, yeah, you're very right there. That fake cheese got nothing on you.
No, yeah. And then this weekend, oh man, you had a doubleheader of Spider-Man. I had a doubleheader of seeing The National and Soccer Mommy. Friday night I went to see The National and Soccer Mommy in Edgefield. And then Saturday morning I went to a wedding for some of my childhood friends. And then not immediately, because I had to come home and shower because the wedding was sort of in the direct sun and I was not feeling great. So I came home and showered, and then I went to see The National and Soccer Mommy play another show at Edgefield, because I guess the first one sold out so fast that then they added the second date kind of thing.
Wait, so you saw the same band twice?
Yeah.
Oh. I thought you saw The National one night and Soccer Mommy the other night.
No, Soccer Mommy was opening for them.
Oh, wait. That's really fun. Oh, I love that.
I know. Well, and I had thought that I had never done that before because it's pretty rare for Portland to get 2 dates of a tour, and I rarely will travel to see a second date of a tour.
Right.
And so I thought I had never done it before, but Taking Back Sunday played 2 nights here a few years ago. But one of the shows I was tabling, so I wasn't, like, fully, like, in fan mode, and then the other show I was. So it doesn't feel the same. And then also, if I'm remembering right, I think the Taking Back Sunday one was... It was like 2 different albums that they were playing each night, and then they were playing additional songs. So it's like that was a more intentionally planned out. Every city had 2 nights, if I'm remembering right. Whereas this was just like, the show sold out so fast that they were like, oh, let's add a second night. Most of the set list is still the same, and then there's like a few songs that are switched out kind of thing. So it's just like... a different experience. And it was fun, though. Although I feel like now I am a little bit, like, nationaled out. You know, I'm a little bit burned out because I've been listening to them so much, too. So now I'm like, okay, that was good. That was fun. But now I'm like, okay, I'm excited. Like, my next show now will be Louis at the end of the month. And I'm so excited. Except for I looked up his set list and he's playing, like, it's like how Harry has, like, Medicine and, like, Anna and, like, these songs that are unreleased, but everybody knows them. And I'm like, shit, I gotta, like, learn Louis' unreleased songs so I don't look like a poser. Damn it. So a lot of work to do. I need to study, actually, for my show. But no, the shows were really fun, except for, okay, so Edgefield made a bunch of accessibility improvements, which is huge. So I didn't even expect them to ever change anything with their accessibility platform, because it's like, so like, for those who don't know, Edgefield, it's like, kind of I was gonna say your typical outdoor venue, as if I've been to many. It's got the stage, a huge lawn area, and then the only, like, platforms are just, they have, like, some VIP platform thing, but then they have the ADA platform. And it's always kind of been in the back right of the venue, and it's always, like, it's every view is a good view, you know, it's not like it's super huge of a venue, so I never expected them to change anything with it, but they actually decided to move it farther back this year, and so now, yeah, you're a tiny bit farther back, but it's in the full shade the entire time.
Yes.
So you don't sit there and bake anymore, which is amazing. And then in January, when they started announcing the summer shows, I emailed them and I was like, hey, like, I have some accessibility suggestions based on my experience last summer. And the biggest thing was that the food areas have loose gravel, like thick loose gravel, like several inches deep of loose gravel, which is just not navigable with mobility devices. And even, like, my friends were saying, like, it's actually, like, pretty annoying to even walk on, like, as an able-bodied person. And so you know, I was like, you know, I had made a few suggestions. I was like, if there's a way to make it more packed or just anything, you know. And they ended up putting down bark chips, like kind of bark dust, bark chip type stuff, which made a pretty big difference. So the first night when I got to the front of the ice cream line to get my Cosmic Coffee ice cream, which was so fucking good, except for it had, like, almonds in it, which I wasn't expecting. And also, why didn't they note that on the menu? It seems like a lawsuit waiting to happen.
Oh my god, yeah, like, especially food allergies.
Right?
People are hell allergic to almonds.
Right? But it was really good. I kind of wish there were slightly less. I was concerned about choking on them, let's be honest. Having something like that where you can't accidentally swallow it, you really need to chew. Like, I'm like,
no, yeah, you have
in
to
a
chew
liquidy, you know,
yeah.
dessert, I'm like, I'm gonna choke. But when I got to the front of the line and I went to turn to, like, you know, get out of the line, when I was, you know, got my ice cream and I was ready to go back to my seat, and my front tire of my scooter, like, dug through the bark chips and found the old gravel, and I got stuck. I was fucking stuck. It was like being in quicksand or mud or something. Like, I could not move. I had to get off my scooter, and several people had to help turn it around and get me going straight again, so that way I wouldn't be stuck.
Oh.
It was annoying, because that's exactly what used to happen with the gravel. But then on the second night, I was like, you know what, I wasn't gonna get ice cream, but I had to get ice cream, because it's homemade, like, handmade, like, on site,
right,
like,
and
so
it's like,
good.
I was gonna say, it sounds like good ice cream. Like, you're not just getting ice cream from a tube, like, or a tub. It's like you're getting, like, it's an exquisite special little treat. So you have to get it.
Yes, exactly.
You can only get it there.
Exactly.
I get it.
And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna brave doing it alone, because the first night my friends sat with me, and the second night they stood in the pit, and so I was like, okay, I can do it, I'm gonna go try. And so I did. I was like, my strategy though was, I was like, okay, I think it's because my scooter can turn really sharp, and so I think it's the fact that when I turn my wheel, it would dig, even just turning it without moving, it would dig through the layers, and that's what would get me stuck. Right. So I was like, if I turn more gradually while I'm moving, then maybe I won't get stuck. And so I did that strategy, and it worked, although they had like ropes up blocking off one of the normal line spots because they didn't have enough workers, and so I couldn't even go all the way up to the counter, which was really annoying because the ropes would have been in the way. I literally wouldn't have been able to get out from being in line because they didn't leave enough room. And so the person behind me held my place in line, so that way I basically just parked off to the side, and then when they were next up, I got off my scooter and walked up. But it's like, again, I shouldn't have to go through all this effort to get some damn ice cream. Right. But at least that time I didn't get stuck. And while I was waiting in the very long ice cream line, I randomly met one of my Twitter mutuals, which was very, pleasant surprise.
Love.
So love to see people in the world. And yeah, ice cream fucking rocks. It was nice not being in the sun at all during the show, and it was actually, it was shady and it was windy and the temperatures weren't too high, so I was actually cold, which rocked. And the only thing was that the cotton trees around the venue were like blooming and spreading their seeds or whatever, and I am still suffering. The first day I accidentally forgot to take my allergy meds, so that was my bad, I guess. And I took a Benadryl that night, and it sort of helped. And then yesterday I took the whole concoction of things I could take, and today my eyes, I would still like to rip them out of my skull, so.
Oh, I hate that. The itchy eyes, like burning eyes, no.
I literally just want to put them in ice water. It's horrendous.
It's funny you say that because I have a sty right now in my left eye, which it's so weird. I always, if I'm gonna get a sty, it's gonna be my left eye. Like, I don't know why I only get them in this eye. And like the sty is, like it makes my eyelid hurt. It makes me feel like there's something in my eye, and I'm like, I just want to keep like an ice pack on my eye and like wear an eye patch. Because, like, I can't... And you know what's funny? It's, like, my left eye is not my dominant eye. So, like, I would be fine if I covered it with an eye patch. I would have no problems. But, like, it's just so... It's... When you have eye stuff going on, it's so much more uncomfortable. Because it's just, like, I can't do anything. Like, I have to look. Like, I have to see stuff. Like, so what am I supposed to do?
Right, and then it's like, of course, now it's going to be warmer weather, and so it's warmer in my room, and I feel like the heat makes, like, sometimes it won't even be allergies that make my eyes dry and itchy. It'll be just it being warmer outside or certain humidity or something in the summer. It's just awful. Are you more susceptible to getting styes? I just don't know. Like, I've never had a sty. No one in my house has ever had a sty. Like,
so here's the reasoning behind. So I usually get styes all the time in 2021 and further. Like, I never got styes before in the past.
Oh.
The issue is that I faced is that wearing a mask that I can't get a good seal on my nose bridge causes a lot of moisture buildup between my glasses and my skin.
Oh.
So that causes me to have styes. So that's why I'm like, I try to get really good with like, even getting rid of masks when they're like, worn a few times, throw it out. Like, because I do think that like just that buildup of like bacteria and like dead skin cells along your nose bridge where the mask is, and then to have that moisture between your glasses. Yeah. Like, that's why sometimes if I'm going to a vendor event and I'm inside, I will opt into wearing my contacts only for the fact of like wearing a mask and having my glasses. Like, if I'm wearing it, wearing my mask for the entire event, I'll have my mask on and I will have my contacts in, so this way I'm not having that like breeding ground behind my glasses.
Yeah.
So like, I think the other day, I also think too, is like during the week, I like remember I was at work or something and I had something in my eye and I couldn't, like, I was trying to get it with like not trying to put my finger in my eye, but like to try to get like the side of my finger in my eye to like, move an eyelash or something. And I feel like I probably just like, I probably literally just got like bacteria in my eye and I got a sty from that. And then like the breeding ground between my mask and my glasses like made it a little worse. Because no matter what I do, I still have a hard time getting a good seal with my KN95s. And, like, I think it also has to do with the fact that, like, I have a smaller face. So, like, the mask sometimes doesn't seal right on the bottom or it doesn't seal right on the top. Whereas, like, sometimes I will take a new mask out of the bag, flatten the entire nose bridge, and then I put the ears on, and then I literally sit there and, like, really meticulously, like, press it down. And that seems to work. But then there's sometimes where I'm, like, running into, like, the grocery store, running into a coffee place where it's, like, if I know I'm not in there for a long enough time, like, when I have my mask on, that's when it's, like, not secured the best.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's what my eye doctor said. He was like, it's because, like, of wearing, like, because he's like, I get them all the time from wearing a mask and wearing glasses.
Wow.
It's like, makes this perfect area for a sty.
Dang.
And I hate it because, I mean, like, I just hate having styes. I hate how irritating it is. And, like, 2 years ago, I had to have one, like, surgically removed off my eye because it was sitting on a weird spot on my eyelid where, like, the eye drop medication wasn't getting to it. So I had no choice but to have my optometrist burn it off.
Wow.
And that was a crazy process. It hurt. That, like, I've had a lot of surgeries. That one hurt probably the most, even with, like, a local anesthetic and things like that.
I hate that for you so much. That's...
Fuck eyes.
Dude, eyes. Yeah. I don't, no, they're the worst.
One of these, like, wet sockets that just, like, collect bacteria, eyelashes, things like that. It's very annoying.
Horrendous. Well, speaking of, horrifying, painful, disgusting, medical stories, we got loads more of those for you today. Okay, they're not all gonna be, like, disgusting and, like, graphic.
No, they're very reminiscent.
Like, if anything, I feel like today's stories are more nostalgia and or emotional as opposed to, like, I feel like our first episode really got more into the gross medical stuff. But, you know, still content warning if you're squeamish at all. You know, we will be talking about surgeries and IV antibiotics and all of the things.
All the icky body gross things.
So if you're not into that, you know.
See you next week.
See ya, yeah. Goodbye. And for the rest of you, welcome.
Welcome to the Thunderdome.
That was an air horn.
So Cassie, when you've had surgeries done when you were younger, right? Because I feel like we've talked about this. Like, a bulk of your surgeries were done when you were, like, kind of like elementary school age or younger, correct?
Yeah.
What's like your earliest memory of having surgery in the hospital?
My earliest memory is that, which, like, I mean, mind you, I was, like, probably in preschool, like 3 or 4. So, you know, as much as I can remember from that age, I feel like, well, first of all, my hospital was completely different because they renovated it in the time that I was there. So it dramatically changed. So it was like in the existing, like, pre-op room where they would have, like, and that's what's wild to me about my hospital before and after the renovation is you would constantly be in rooms full of other kids in hospital beds constantly before they renovated it, because I think they literally added, like, a whole nother wing at that point. And so it's like the pre-op room, you would be waiting in there with the other kids who are waiting to get surgery, whereas nowadays you have separate pre-op rooms. And so we would be laying in there, and, like, your parents would be with you and stuff still before you go in. And for my first surgery, they gave me, they would always give you, it must be like, it's probably like a muscle relaxer or something like that, or like anti-anxiety meds or something. They'd be like, you know, this will make you loopy, help you forget the surgery or whatever, which I'm like, you're asleep during it. What do I need to forget, you know? And so my parents say that I was literally laying there reaching, like, I was hallucinating. I was literally seeing shit and reaching for it. Like, I was seeing stuff floating and I was reaching for it in the air, because I was so high. But otherwise, I mostly associate, like, that pre-op room with, they had, like, a collection, or not a collection, but, like, donated or, like, bought or whatever Beanie Babies that you would pick out, or I don't know if it was just stuffed animals in general, but I remember getting a lot of Beanie Babies, so I think it was mainly Beanie Babies. You would like pick out your Beanie Baby or your stuffed animal before surgery, which was always the best. I think I still have one of them because it happened to have like, even though I got surgery in the winter and stuff, it happened to have like July, like it was like the July birthday bear or something like that, and so I was like, oh my god, that's literally me. And I don't know if that's where Mookie, my stuffed animal, I don't know if that's where he came from or not, but I mean, yeah, mostly good memes. I don't know, because I feel like I was pretty good with surgery as a child, and then like there was another Cassandra Wilson with a similar birthday, and I just remember one time being in the OR, which I also feel like in the OR, I swear to God, they had multiple tables, multiple kids going at the same time. It was, I don't know how much of my memory is accurate, but I'm like, I swear to God, we were all just, I'm like, how is that sanitary? So many questions.
I mean, I remember when I was younger, the pre-op rooms, like you said, like all these kids being in there. Like I remember one pre-op room that probably had 7 beds, and each time I went, at least 5 of those 7 were taken. But when I had my port removed in August of 2021, there was one other person in that room with me. Like the way that they staggered surgeries after that was like there was never more than like 3 people in the room. But, like, I remember when I was younger in the hospital, I shared a room with another girl who was, like, I was elementary school at the time, but she was definitely, like, maybe a freshman in high school. And I remember my parents having a fit over that because they were, like, they just didn't, like, the thing is with, like, people with CF is, like, we're highly susceptible to other people's, like, illnesses. So, like, if she had the flu and that's why she was in the hospital, like, she shouldn't have been in the room with me. So, like, I remember my mom making a huge stink out of it because we didn't know what she had. And also the same thing of, like, in the hospital, like, TMI, but I would always get some type of, like, E. coli stomach issue from the toilets. So, like, I would sometimes get that from sharing a room with another person who had, like, a bacterial infection. And ever since then, that was the first and last time I ever shared a room with somebody. And it's because of the fact of that, where it's like there's a lot of cross-contamination.
So did you go to a more, because I don't know if we even talked about this before, did you go to like a more general children's hospital? Or like what was, because like, so like I went to Shriners, which was basically all just kids with physical disabilities. Like nobody was ever there because they're sick or something. Everyone who was in the hospital was having surgery, or if they did have an infection from having surgery, that would be the only thing.
Right. So, I went to, mine was definitely a more general hospital.
Okay.
Monmouth Medical Center, if you shout out Long Branch, New Jersey. I really, because that's where, because I had to go to a hospital that had a CF center. And, like, that was the only one near me that had a CF center. Other hospitals, like, there's 2 other hospitals that are closer to me, but they don't have CF centers or, like, a good pulmonology program, so I never went to them. So that's why I always went to Monmouth. I did end up going to the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia when I was younger for, like, drug trials and things like that. But, yeah, I was mostly just in Monmouth.
Okay.
Which, yeah, that was a very general hospital of, like, having, like, the emergency rooms. There was actually supposed to be a whole CF patient wing in that hospital. But it never, for whatever reason, I think it fell through and it just ended up becoming an adult wing, which was really annoying because I did stay there once, and those rooms were like spa rooms, like all like hardwood floors and walls and like nice TV, and there was like sconces in the rooms and stuff for lighting. Like the bathrooms all had their own showers, which was a huge thing because when I would stay in the children's wing, they did not have showers in the rooms. So if your mom or you had to take a shower, you have to go in the hallway to use the shower and the bathtub in the hallway. But yeah, no, mine was, I never went to any, like, specialized hospital, like the one you've described, Shriners.
Yeah, well, that makes more sense than why, like, the, like, infection and, like, getting sick and stuff would have been a bigger issue because, yeah, you've got people who are, like, yeah, that's scary, like, stressful.
You have kids that are there with, like, lung issues that are getting like PICC lines. They are not going to do well if you put it in there with someone that's sick.
Well, and like, yeah, like with the sharing a room thing, so not only obviously was the pre-op room obviously had like just a bunch of kids in beds, but what I was gonna say was like the other Cassandra Wilson and I had surgery the same day, except for she was sick, so she didn't come. And so they were like, oh, guess we should make sure we're doing the right surgery on the right kid.
Oh my
it's like,
God.
Jesus. Which, I mean, like, to be fair, like, your doctor, like, your surgeon comes in to, like, your pre-op room and draws on your leg and, whatever.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
So, they know what they're doing.
Yeah, my port was the same way. Drawn on you with the purple marker.
And then, but then, like, yeah, back in the day, like, all of the hospital rooms were just big rooms that had 4 kids in them. And, like, for the little kids or for kids that wouldn't stay in their bed, they literally basically, I would describe them as a cage. I mean, it was a crib, but let's be fucking real. It's a hospital bed with a fucking cage around it. Never had to have one of those. I'm sorry, I'm too high to get out of bed. But my dad would always stay with me because my mom would stay home with my brother to get him to school and stuff. And if we, like, heard kids screaming in the middle of the night or whatever, we would, like, make, like, I don't know, if you imagine, like, the shocked, like, emoji face of just, like, mouth open, eyebrows raised, we would make that face at each other, and we called it hospital face, when we're like, oh my God, these children, which obviously they're, like, tiny little babies in pain from surgery.
Right. But they're loud as hell.
Oh, they're loud as hell, and you're like, okay, I also just had surgery and I would like to sleep.
Yeah.
And then we would, like, tap our hospital bracelets together while we made the face. It was weird superhero-esque memory. I'm like, I don't know, what happens when we tap our bracelets together? We get superpowers or something. I don't know. Ironically, I didn't make friends back when I shared rooms with kids. I made friends during my longer hospital stay when my back was infected, because there was another girl who also has spent, like, very long periods of time in the hospital. And so, like, I was, like, very upset about having to, like, be there again and for a longer period of time, and so she was more of a pro at it, and so she would, like, invite me to color and hang out and watch TV and stuff, and so that was very nice. And now we occasionally end up on the same bus together when I'm going to school, which is fun. So
that's cute. Oh man, I never was able to make friends like that in the hospital because, again, of just, like, CF people needing to, like, stay away from the general other kids in the hospital. I remember, like, being in the hospital at one time when I was, like, when after you would get PICC lines and stuff, then they would want you to, like, get up and, like, walk around the unit and stuff to kind of just, like, get, like, so this way you're not, like, sitting in bed all day. So I would walk around, and there was one time where, like, another girl at CF that was there at the time wanted to walk around as well. So I had to finish my laps, and then she was able to do her laps, and her walking past the room, and us, like, waving at each other. And I was always like, oh, like, because at the time, like, I didn't, other than, like, my cousin, I didn't know anybody else that had CF, and I didn't know them, like, personally. So I kind of felt like that was, and there's a few times where her and I both stayed at the hospital at the same time. And it kind of just felt like one of those people, I'm like, man, like, I wish I could be friends with them. And dude, unfortunately.
That's so sad. It's literally the fucking movie.
Well, it's even worse because she ended up passing away a few years later.
Jesus.
So I could not, am not able to be friends with her at all. I'm
sorry.
But, like, yeah, it's okay. I mean, but that's, like, the premise of the 5 Feet Apart movie is the fact that, like, you cannot be friends with other CF people. And, like, back in the day, before they even knew that was a thing, they actually had these things that were called, like, CF camp, and where, like, all the kids with CF would go to camp during the summer together.
Holy
for, like,
shit.
At least a few weeks. And then all those kids would come home terribly ill. And they never figured out it's because of the fact that all these kids were not really allowed to be with each other because you're trading bacteria back and forth. Because, like, with CF is, like, your lungs have basically, from, like, what I interpreted as, like, your lungs have a very specific type of bacteria that, like, I could not give to a normal person, but I could give it to another person that has a lung disease. Mm-hmm. So, like, that's why you're not really supposed to be hanging out with one another, is because, like, and those bacteria are bacteria that are, like, antibiotic resistant.
Yeah.
Like, you have to be on very specific meds to even, you know, get it under control, because the growth can go from, like, 0 to 100 in such a short amount of time. So, yeah, you weren't, like, really allowed to hang out with any of those kids. And, like, even being in the hospital with them at the same time, it's, like, so strict of, like, you cannot go in the playroom because, you know, you both can't go in there. Like, it's kind of like, you know, of just, like, again, of, like, you could pick other diseases up from going in the playroom with those kids. So, like, you know, I would have them give me, like, Xboxes or, like, a laptop to play with in my room. But otherwise, like, that was it. Like, I never got to go in the coloring room and color. Like, they would bring that stuff to me, but it would be brand new things that were, like, you know, either brand new or, like, heavily sanitized before it was brought to me.
Wow.
I remember, I think I was trying to remember if I've got any toys. I think I was given, like, a few toys, but usually my parents would take me to Toys R Us after, because it was kind of like, the hospital toys are dirty.
That makes sense. I think Shriners was so, like, fundraiser, donor heavy.
True.
That stuff was always being donated. Yeah, it's interesting because as a kid, I had longer hospital stays, and I think it's just the changing medical stuff. Like, as a kid, like, they would keep you longer as a kid, and nowadays, surgery's a fucking drive-through. They get you in and out, and I honestly think that's why my back got infected, because my incision had not healed properly, and they just fucking sent me off into the world without addressing that and making sure that it was good to go. And so obviously it, like, got infected. Like, I don't know. And it's hard because when you're in that state, you literally, I was on so many fucking drugs. I couldn't advocate for myself. I had no idea what was going on. I literally couldn't. And then I obviously had an infection on top of that. So I was, like, so far gone that it's like you can't advocate for yourself in that situation. But all of this to say that when I was a kid, I got to take a little bit more advantage of the, like, fun stuff in the hospital, and especially with it being a children's hospital. It's like they would have, like, movie nights on, like, Tuesdays or whatever, where you would literally, all the kids, because the rec room was huge, and so all the kids would get, whoever wanted to, like, felt up to it, would get wheeled in their beds down to the rec room to watch a movie. And I think we watched, like, a Garfield movie or something like that, and we got literally whatever popcorn, soda, snacks we wanted, because, listen, this was before Michelle Obama. No offense, Michelle Obama, but, like, we also back then had a fucking breakfast cart that had, like, strawberry Pop-Tarts and shit on it, all sorts of processed, prepackaged foods. Those were the days, you know? And
sorry, avid listener Michelle Obama.
Yeah, so sorry, Michelle Obama and friends and family, you know, Barack, sorry. Listen, I just, when you're in the fucking hospital, you want some damn Pop-Tarts. Let me live, you know?
I agree.
And then, like, yeah, we had, like, a school, because, again, for, like, those kids who are there longer, it's, like, some of them would need that space, but, like, I would mostly go there and do, like, crafts and stuff. Oh, my God. It's so fun. Most of the rec room stuff was really boring, though, and there kind of really wasn't actually a lot. It was probably more helpful for, like, siblings of kids in the hospital, if anything.
Right.
But when I had my longer stay, because when I was recovering from the infection, I was very, like, together mentally, in terms of, like, I would wake up from surgery and be like, all right, let's get the day, you know, going here. And so, like, one time, like, Courtney came and visited, and we literally went and played fucking air hockey in the rec room. It was very fun. I feel like, I can't remember if Heather was there too. Somebody else was there. Maybe it was Courtney and Heather. Oh my God. I don't know. It was beautiful. Yeah. And then we had video game machines around. I feel like they were GameCubes, and I feel like they still have those.
Oh yeah. I mean, when I was in the hospital it was definitely, like, post high school. So it was, like, sometime when I was in college, and it was over the summer. Because whenever, like, my doctors were always very adamant about, like, strategically placing my hospital visits for, like, PICC lines and stuff like that. Like, right when college was done with, that's when I'd go in for a PICC line. Or, like, right before college started back up again, that's when I'd go for a PICC line. Because they know, they were, like, very aware of, like, the school's, you know, the school, how, like, medications made me feel overall. Like, did not want me missing any days. So there would be times where I'd be in the hospital during the summer. So all my friends would be home from school and they would come hang out in my hospital room on like a Tuesday. And we would play like Mario Party. Like there was one time I think that I had 6 visitors in my room, all my friends. And I remember the nurses were like, there's like too many people in here. Like,
oh my God.
You know, because it was like, and it was getting late and it was like getting past 8 o'clock, which is like when the visitor hours were over with. And I just remember that was like one day where I felt so full. Like, I was like, wow, like, I kind of loved, like, hanging out with my friends in the hospital.
Oh.
And they would bring me outside food, like surf taco or some coffee. And I just, like, hearing their funny stories from work at the time. Because a few of my friends at the time worked at a camp. So they would talk about, like, kids and stuff at the camp and, like, funny things that they said. And, like, it's always just really funny to me. Or, like... And then I also would feel bad because, like, there was one time when I was in the hospital where I could not go to the bathroom, so I was in the hospital. And they had a machine that was, like, pumping, like, some of my stomach fluid out. So this way it would, like, less stuff. Like, I would eat and then it would just literally pump it out. So this way it didn't build up in my intestines. And I remember my friends, like, sitting in my room with this, like, bag that was hanging over my bed that was full of like bile and like dark matter because it was just this shit that was being pumped out of me. And I felt like so awkward because I was like this like disgusting elephant in the room right here of like literal crap.
I mean, you're talking to the girl who had a vacuum attached to her back sucking the fluid out of her back. So I extremely relate to that because yeah, I'm glad to hear that you got to have visitors because I was wondering, like, obviously, like you said, it's already so high risk being in the hospital. I didn't know, like, and obviously, yeah, you can't see CF people, but I didn't know if you could see normal people, so that's good.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes, like, they have people scrub up, like, wear a mask and gloves and, you know, scrubs to come in the room. Because, you know, of just, like, outside people. But I think they're more concerned with just people that were in the hospital that were visibly sick. But like you were saying before about, like, having to go home, you know, going home at a certain amount of time is, like, when I had PICC lines, I remember I'd always end up staying in the hospital for, like, at least a week after I got my PICC line placed because they also wanted to, like, make sure my medication dosage was right and that I didn't have any problems with the PICC lines because sometimes they can get clogged or your body, like, rejects it. So I would mostly stay in the hospital. But it was, like, right after I got my port, that surgery was a very intensive surgery. But I remember being home within 2 days after. And, like, once they were able to access it and once it worked right and they did my first dose of medications, I was out.
Yeah, and for people who don't know, if you have surgery, well, depending what kind of surgery, how long it is, blah, 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 usually your checklist of things to do is, make sure that whatever you got done is working or whatever. But the biggest thing is you must go pee, you must go poop.
Yes. Yeah, must be able to keep food down, like, stuff like that. Like, no, I literally remember not being able to leave one night because I could not go to the bathroom. Yep. And it was, like, so upsetting to me because I was like, all I wanted, it was like 6 or something at night. So it was like, if you can't go to the bathroom, like, you have to stay here tonight. Yep. And it was like, I really don't want to because I'd rather sleep at home. Like, I miss my dog. Like, I want to be home. And I ended up just, like, I had a lot of instances like that where I could not go to the bathroom in the hospital, and that was the reason why I stayed. Oh, yeah,
no, I mean, anesthesia and all the meds they give you get you so backed up, and, like...
Yeah.
But and half the time my problem, even when I get, like, home from surgery and stuff, is that my appetite is so low that I'm literally not eating enough to be able to need to use the bathroom.
Right.
Because I would be taking all the Miralax, everything, and it's like, oh, nothing's coming out because there's nothing in me because I'm not hungry. And then as soon as I eat, like, a real meal, everything's fine. I'm like, really?
Yeah, I mean, and that's when you knew I was sick, when I wasn't eating, because, like, when I was in the hospital, they had... Like, everybody else had they had their own, you know, they had a menu. But CF people had their own secret menu of, like, a lot of high-calorie stuff. So, like, hamburgers, French fries, like, fatty foods, like, chicken cutlets. And everything I got double servings of. Because of people, again, of like having CF is like your body not being able to absorb nutrients the way that a normal person's does. You're eating double the amount just to absorb what one person would have with one serving. So I remember just eating food so much, and like if I wanted another meal, like call down to dining and they'd bring you another meal. Like this like consistent food chain. I was never hungry. But like I was, but then it was like if I was like not eating, there was of course a problem because I would scarf down an entire plate like multiple times. Oh my God,
that's kind of amazing.
Oh man, I loved eating. People rip on hospital food all the time, but I genuinely don't think it's that bad.
And listen, pre-Michelle. Michelle, because when I was a kid and was having all my leg surgeries, you actually didn't have a menu back then. They would just bring you whatever the fucking dinner was that night, which I kind of loved because they would bring it on that little hospital tray with the cover, and so you would unveil what it is. And obviously, also back then they gave you fucking pudding and cake,
pudding, ice cream. There was an appetizer. There were snacks. They were set.
So good. And then yeah, once by the time I had back surgery, I had to call an order, and it was just kind of shitty food. But I love that. So the Shriners was kind of like at a complex of other hospitals, like Dornbecker, which is like kind of like I think where kids with like more like cancer and other chronic illnesses go. But it was also connected to like OHSU. It was connected to a lot of other hospitals like by sky bridges. And so there's a Starbucks in one of them. So when I was on my long hospital stay, they were like, we don't do this for most kids, but when you're here a long time and you literally need to get the fuck out because you're going stir crazy, like we, take you over to the Starbucks and get you a little something. So that was a very fun adventure. And like, I totally feel that with the, like, whenever it was my last day in the hospital, my mom would bring me an Egg McMuffin from McDonald's. Oh, it was the best. But I like with the having people visit and stuff. So during my during my infection from my spinal surgery, literally when they told me that I needed to be like admitted because I was gonna be fucking staying there a while, I cried through the entire hospital because as they were like admitting me because I was going to have to miss the Home Safe concert. And I had been waiting so long for them to like go on a full US tour, come to Portland, and I was so upset, and it was really upsetting my doctor because she felt so bad. Amidst all the chaos, somehow my mom, my friends who were literally like running the show, all of that, made it happen where Home Safe came and visited me. Also in the middle of an ice storm. So don't know how they pulled that off, but They're from Chicago, so dedicated. Makes more sense. And I think, if I remember right, because I was really high, which we'll get to that. I'm pretty sure Chase Huglin was also with them because I think he was on that tour, and yeah. Here's the thing. I try to just simply not think about those memories because it obviously the nicest thing ever, so grateful, like it lifted my spirits so much. And then they live streamed, like my friend set up her laptop to live stream the show for me, like made my whole night. I wrote a show review about it, like it was a whole thing. But like I try not to think about those memories too much because I was literally so high, and then afterwards they almost had to give me a blood transfusion because as soon as they left, I was like so dehydrated because my room had gotten so hot, and I was just so overwhelmed because that was a lot happening. That it's like I immediately had to pee. They had to prick my finger and make sure I didn't need a blood transfusion because I was so like warm from the room being so warm. It was like there was a lot going on, but I try not to think about it too much because I'm like, obviously, like, when you're recovering from that kind of shit, like, you're not fully there. Even though I was like better than when I had the initial surgery, it's like I'm just like, I don't know, I feel like, and also like socializing in front of your parents and doctor, it's a very awkward situation. Right.
You don't want to like overthink it, and
you're in such a vulnerable state. I definitely said shit that I literally can't think about because I'm like, I don't want to ruin the memory by cringing about shit that I said, but Anyway, but it was very nice, and it's like funny because my doctors are like, who the fuck is this random ass band from Chicago that you're like dying to see? And then I'm pretty sure my next surgery, they asked me what because I didn't know my surgeons listen to music in the operating room, because apparently they're just fucking rocking out while they're washing my spine or whatever, and they asked me if I had any requests, and so they played Knuckle Puck while they were knocking me out, and then they said that they couldn't stand it, and they switched it to the hipster barbecue radio station on Pandora.
Because everything is copacetic.
Right? I'm like, excuse me, you changed it from Knuckle Puck to hipster barbecue? What the fuck is that?
I'm dying. That's why they couldn't stand Knuckle Puck. When I was in the hospital, when I was in high school, I think it was for my port, Andy Grammer came to visit me. Because he was playing a college show nearby. Amazing. So they had him just visit the children's ward. And, like, let me preface this by saying that, like, I stayed in the pediatric wing in the hospital until I was at least, like, 22. Because, again, my CF doctor at the time was a pediatric doctor, so they would just put me in the pediatric wing.
And it's a children's disease.
And it's a children's disease. Hey, man, they didn't, that's why I think it's funny that they were making a CF wing of the hospital, because I'm like, you're being very hopeful, man. We are not known to live this long. Anyway, so Andy Grammer came by, and I remember, like, trying, again, of just being a little bit loopy on meds, just having surgery, stuff like that, trying to get him to follow me on Twitter, and he wouldn't. And I was like, Andy, you should totally follow me on Twitter, like, come, hang out, like, Sassafras Root States on Twitter.com.
Oh.
And he's like, yeah, sure. Like, I was, like, obviously making this man uncomfortable, because, like, the other people in the room, the other kids, like, seeing him, are like little babies, like 7-year-olds, and then you have this 18-year-old that's like, sup, dude, like, follow me on Twitter, like, oh, let me like my tweets, and I have a picture with him, but it's like I looked crazed because I'm in a hospital gown, haven't washed my hair in like 5 days, haven't taken a proper shower in 5 days, I probably reeked, and he's probably like, this like woman won't leave me alone. And a few years later, he did this song for the 5 Feet Apart movie. So I'd like to think that I inspired that moment in him.
Oh my God. Holy shit.
Otherwise, we had a lot of therapy dogs that came to visit us, which I have a bunch of pictures of them. They were very sweet. They got to sit on everybody else's beds. But because, again, of, like, trying to not pet the dog that a bunch of other dirty kids just pet, I could only be out in the hallway, and I can, like, gave it a little pat on the head, and then I had to sanitize my hands, and that was it.
Ugh.
But they had business cards for the therapy dogs. Like, I remember I got one afterwards for this little, like, it was like a little black and white pug. I don't remember her name, but I had her business card. I was like, yeah, let me just, like, call you to, like, bring your dog to my house.
What if you just called the pug up?
What's up, pug?
I feel like we had therapy dogs too, and I always said, no, I don't want to fucking see them because I was terrified of dogs, so.
Oh, what, yeah. A therapy cat? That would have been nice.
I feel like, I don't know, maybe. Although, yeah, we always joked about sneaking the cat in. And then we randomly had, like, somebody in a large bee costume visit. I don't know why. I don't know if this was when the fucking Bee movie was coming out. I literally don't know. But I have an actual physical Polaroid with the bee.
I remember, like, it was around Valentine's Day when I was in the hospital, when I was, like, another elementary school visit. There was, like, a local high school that came by to drop off these little gift bags that they made. And there's these 2 girls that came into my room to give me the little bag. It was just had some candy. I think they made, like, little friendship bracelets and stuff like that. And I remember those girls hung out in my room for a little bit, like, because they were just sitting there talking to me, because I was, like, the oldest person in the room at the time, from even being in elementary school. And I just remember the girls, like, sitting there and just, like, shooting the shit with a bunch of like two high school girls, and I was like, wow, this is like that's one of my like first like core memories where I was like, these girls think I'm cool. Like,
oh my
I
God.
really like this.
Okay, that reminds me, because yeah, I really relate to like the whole like being at a children's like in my case like a children's hospital when you're an adult, because nowadays they don't let you stay past 18, but they let me stay till I was like 21, 22, and or 20. I guess I was like 20 or 21. I don't know. But as a result, like, especially the nurses and stuff, a lot of them were like, you know, pretty fresh from school. They're very young. And my night nurses in particular, with spine surgery, you have to be constantly rolled. So you can't just stay in one, because you also can't easily roll yourself. So you had to either be on your back, on your side, or on your other side. And so they would come and roll you. And I literally we would bond. They'd be rolling me over, and we'd be freaking hanging out. They were my favorites. And I was like, if I ever have a band, I'm calling it the Night Rollers. It kind of sounds epic because it kind of sounds like fucking like roller skating or something, but no, it's fucking night team. Nurses. Yeah, right. So that was pretty good stuff. I used to, like when I was in elementary school and stuff, my class and like my brother's like class would like make me like cards and stuff, which was cute and nice.
Oh yeah, I got one of them too. There was one time where they made me cards, and it was nice. I remember one kid had a lot of spelling mistakes that I held to, that I still held against him when we were in high school, when I would really bully him about that. I mean, like, what? You're in 4th grade. So, like, of course your spelling's not going to be the best. But he wrote fell better instead of feel better. So, he kind of asked for that.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of those.
There was a time where I was in the hospital, and I had to look this up. I was in the hospital when I vividly remember hearing about, like, it's called, like, Miracle on the Hudson, where, like, the Captain Sully landed the plane on the Hudson River. That's a core memory. I was in the hospital during that. So, like, I remember hearing that on the news. My parents talking about, like, watching the news the entire day. And I kept thinking, because the hospital I was staying at was on the Navesink River in New Jersey, I kept thinking that I was going to see the plane floating down the Navesink, which obviously you wouldn't. It's not connected. I was like, wow, like, that was like literally a core memory. It was like literally hearing about Captain Sully landing that plane on the Hudson River and how there was no injuries, everybody survived, and it was a miracle thing that he did. Core memory right there, like, not even kidding. So when I would go to the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, I would do these like drug trials there, and they were like, I think because children that have CF have a really hard time gaining weight and like maintaining nutrition, and a lot of them face like a lot of like malnutrition issues when they were younger because their body couldn't absorb nutrients. And it was kind of just like, what food do you give a child that won't eat but like needs to eat more, like twice as much as what they're doing right now? So they would give us these like protein powders that you had to mix in with foods and with like all these type of stuff, because they're trying to figure out like how to even like market this so people can eat it and like kids can eat it. And I would go to Philly, and they would mix this like powder and almost like all these foods that I ate to try to figure out like what worked with it best. But it was a very thick protein powder, and they would try to mix it in with these like cakes and stuff. And it was like a cake that was like in a plastic container. You put the protein powder in, and then you put the cake mix powder in like that, and then you mix it, you put it in the microwave, you take it out, and then you eat it. But it never mixed, the powder never mixed right, so you're eating it, and there's just this huge glob of like white powder inside this chocolate cake. Ugh. And I always have this vivid memory of trying to eat that, and it was disgusting because it never mixed. Like, it was still very powdery, and it had a very like off vanilla taste to it. So it was just very, like, it could not mask that well. And when I was also, like, in the hospital doing these drug trials as well, there was another one that I did that I can't remember exactly, like, what they were even testing for. but it would like, I think it was just your breathing rhythm when you're resting. So I would sit on a hospital bed that was more like a gurney. It wasn't even a hospital bed, so it was uncomfortable. I'd have to wear this like spaceman bubble over my head and sit there not moving for 2 hours.
Holy shit.
They would put on a Disney movie while I was sitting there. I would watch like Finding Nemo or Toy Story or something. But like every time I would move, she would have to write down the time that I moved and what I moved, like my arm or my legs. And I remember halfway during it, they were like, stop moving. Like, you're moving so much. But I'm like, I'm not comfortable. Like, how can I be sitting here comfortable? Like, sitting straight up with like my legs flat out, not even a pillow under my knees to make it a little bit more comfortable. And sitting in like a dark room like that by yourself with like the person conducting the study. And I just remember not even being able to finish because of how much I was moving and how I was like, I couldn't get comfortable. No matter what I did, I couldn't get comfortable. Because I was like, realistically, when you're home and if you were doing this test, like if you weren't doing this test and you're watching a movie, how many times do you think you get up and move? Like, or even just move your legs, change your position on the couch, go to the bathroom, like stuff like that. There's a lot of trials I participated in like that. And some of them, you'd get to the end and they said they would pay you and they never did.
Ooh.
Like, there's another one that I did through my doctor's office at my hospital, like, a few years ago. That was this, like, testing thing. It was, like, I think it was for, like, chronically ill kids that had depression. So they would, like, have you fill out this form and watch, like, silly YouTube videos to see if it made you feel better. And it was never like, and I was like, the videos they would send you were like epic rap battles of history to watch. And I was like, what the fuck? Why am I watching this? Or like, it's like when they do like debates, like it's like a Trump Biden debate, but like they would like do mock voices. So they would do voiceovers over Biden's voice of him saying silly things. They would make you watch those. And I was like, they're not funny. I am 19 years old. Why would I think something that like Joe Biden saying poop is funny? And like, that was another one they were supposed to pay me for and they never did. And my doctor's offices end up giving me $50 because they felt bad that they didn't pay me.
Oh my God.
And like, I think that those are the main like 2 drug trials that I remember. There were some of them that I actually got offered to do at like Columbia University in New York. But they were ones that they didn't pay you for. And they would compensate your parking and stuff like that. But it was like, at the time I was in college. So I was like, I have a job. I have to go to school. Like, I can't just miss time. And the fact that you're asking chronically ill people to just like miss hours for your study, but not even to compensate them with anything. Sometimes like they'd be like, oh, a $25 Amazon gift card.
Yeah.
It's like, but you're asking me to be here every day for a week straight. So obviously, even in that end of things, is that like it would be more financially like it would be a lot better if I stayed at a hotel rather than coming back and forth every day.
Yeah.
But I'm not staying in a hospital. I'm not staying in a hotel in New York for using my own money for this stuff. Like to not even be reimbursing you. And I was like, for a big college too. Like you guys have these research programs should obviously account for things like that. And I would imagine now that they do, because this was like very early in the days of like when they would open that stuff up for the general public. Mm-hmm. And I remember my doctors being like, you should totally get into this. You should totally try this. And I'm like, I do not have the disposable income to stay in New York, to go to New York every day like this. Like, that's just not feasibly possible.
No. It is interesting. Yeah, because I never had, like, drug trials, but, like, especially with us being connected to, like, OHSU and stuff, and I'm sure kids everywhere experience this regardless of where they're at. A lot of, like, students who are like learning, like, I don't know if they're residents, I don't know if they're like what they're doing or if they're just there for the day, like shadowing, like would come in and stuff. And like I do remember one time like that I was used, like I was so young I hardly remember it. I just remember laying on like an exam table in like a sort of auditorium thing at the hospital with all these like doctors, or I don't know if they were students, I don't know who they were, but they were like, I don't know, they were doing stuff with my legs, bending them, I have no idea. I don't really remember. I just remember laying there in front of all of them. And then I also remember one time, like when I was just at my regular doctor's appointment and there was like a student doctor or whatever, it's like they were like, examining my legs, seeing how they worked and stuff. And he like I had my left leg bent, just like I was laying on my back, and I had my left leg just like bent, like up in the air, and he like tried to move the lower half of my leg outwards, and I'm like, your leg doesn't do that. Nobody's leg fucking does that. Like, like bending it out, like holding my knees still, but bending my like the lower half of my leg out, and I cried. And because like that was the other thing too, is you're a kid, you can't really speak up, like you don't know how to speak up for yourself and be like, this hurts, this is uncomfortable, I don't like that, you're not taught that.
And, like, I think, too, is, like, the, like, body autonomy when you're younger, too. Because of, like, when I was in the hospital a lot, we'd always have residents that would come in the rooms, and they would, like, what I really got accustomed to doing is, like, so when they would come in, they'd be like, you have CF, and, like, they would talk to you about everything, and I'd be like, yeah, like, a big thing with people that have CF, they have clubbed fingers. Because due to, like, oxygen restriction when you're in the womb, you have more rounded fingers. So when they would come in and be like, do you have club fingers? I'd go like, no. And I would flip them off with both my fingers. Because I would never, because like they would do it in a really like invasive way when they looked at your hands. And it really made me uncomfortable because of like, just like being a girl, you have nail polish on and they were like, and it would make or like you have longer nails. So it's kind of hard to tell if you have club fingers. And I just would hate how, like, they would hold your hand and they would really look at it and, like, squeeze it and, like, flatten it. And it was just, like, made me very uncomfortable because it was, like, it's almost like they didn't know how to ask you what they wanted, like, or what they were looking for. So they just felt like they could touch you. Yeah. And I'm like, you can't just touch me. And, like, I remember one time, one of them wanted to, like, feel my stomach for, like, feeling, because, like, when you're, like, with CF, it's like when you're really bloated, your stomach can get really hard. So they wanted to like feel my stomach, but I was like, no, I'm actually not comfortable with you doing that. And it was like an like type of response where it's like, yeah, you're not allowed. Like, I understand that you're doing this for your studies and things, but you're not allowed to just touch me. Yeah. And like, especially when you get older and like, your body's growing and stuff like that. It's like, you don't want to be perceived by these people that are also only a few years older than you. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I just got to the point where I was like, I would rather not have any residents come in my room because I don't like how you guys act. I don't like how you guys talk to me. And like, anytime that I would learn that someone's a resident at a hospital, I was like, well, make sure you're, remembering that that's a person that you're touching and not just your little freaky science experiment for the day. Because that's how a lot of you people acted, was like, I was a frog on a dissecting table. Like, I will bite you and I will hurt your feelings on the way out.
This is an extremely inappropriate time for me to bring this up, but during my last hospital stay, I can't remember if he was a resident or a nurse or what, but he was really hot. And that's the thing, is they're only a few years older than you, and you're like, oh my god, I'm at the children's hospital. I am, this is not right. But
always a patient and never a bride.
Oh god, he was hot. And there
was a lot of cute ones.
Hot nurses carry.
They carry the medical industry.
You need a crush everywhere you fucking go to carry you through that experience. And I thank him for his service. But also, he was very respectful, and I also appreciate that.
If I had a guy nurse now, I think that I would definitely be like, hi, like, I'm going to take a shower more than once a week. Because it's just kind of like, I don't know, like we say, you gotta have a crush to get through the day, man. Otherwise, what am I living for? What am I doing any of this? When I thought my appendix ruptured and I was in the ER and there was a nurse there and it was someone that, like, my mom was like, oh, he was a resident when you were younger here. And I was like, wow, it's so crazy because, like, realistically, he was only like 7 years older than me. And I remember, like, referring to my appendix as a dirty old shoe. And that, like, being, like, hilarious. And I was like, you think that's funny? Wow.
But, like, with the body autonomy stuff, that is really interesting because I've just kind of never really thought about it. And that's so much fun to unpack someday. And speaking of which, I'm very curious if you have, like, I don't know, triggers from, like, your time in the hospital, spending so much time in the hospital. Like, for me, like, if I hear, like, if my mom's watching, like, a medical-related show or something, if I hear, like, hospital beeping, like, especially, like, the, like, finger oxygen thing if you would like not be breathing right and it would yell at you or whatever.
Yes.
Like that is so triggering to me because I'm like, I'm breathing. Like, when I visited the Capitol, there's a bell that goes off when it's time for a floor vote. So that way all the legislators know to get down to the floor to vote. And it was in a rhythm and sound that was so fucking similar to hospital beeping that I was just like, I'm breathing, I'm alive. Like, I'm just like, it's so triggering to me because I'm like, because I don't know, nothing feels real when you're like under anesthesia or like on a bunch of drugs in the hospital. And so it's like, I'm like, oh my God, did I somehow like end up in the hospital and I didn't know it? It's like so triggering to me.
Right, like, am I in a coma right now?
Literally. I'm like, am I about to wake up? Oh my God, everyone will be so pleased, but especially me.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of any triggers. I do think that, like, when I watch the things like the 5 Feet Apart movie or just any media that had somebody with CF, it always really bothered me that it was never, like, it couldn't even be it couldn't be further from medically accurate.
Oh, yeah.
As if, like, y'all didn't even try, which I know. Obviously, it's drama, it's fiction, it's not real.
Which I interpret that to be true so much of the time that then I assume it's so far off that then when you're like, oh yeah, CF people can't be around each other, that I'm like, oh yeah, I forget that's actually true.
Yeah, I mean, but like, I think the thing that like triggered me the most when I even watched like watching the 5 Feet Apart movie was like the one character lungs collapsed and he keeled over and died right there. And I knew someone that her lung collapsed and she literally drove herself to the hospital.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, obviously of like things where it's like when it's like really far off the point and it's like a very dramatized thing of your lung collapsing and you're just dead immediately.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'm sure in severe cases, right? But like if you're in a hospital, you're acting like they're just going to like pull the, you know, fabric over your eyes and like start, you know, filling you with formaldehyde. Like it's literally not true. But I do think that, like, smell, like that very hospital smell, I do think then, okay, so in hospital rooms, when they would have that, like, happiness to sadness chart, and it was, like, rate your pain, I think that that permanently fucked up the way that I, like, tolerate pain nowadays. Because, like, I would be in severe pain when I was younger in the hospital, and I would say, like, I'm at a 10. And they'd be like, well, if you're in a 10, you'd be like passing out from much pain that you're in, or you would be a lot, like you wouldn't be able to convey to us that you're a 10. And I was like, okay, so nowadays when I have pain, I like don't know what to rate it because I feel like a 10 is too high, even though like I just am in a lot of pain where like maybe this is a 10 and I don't know. I've never felt that much pain before to tell when it's a 10.
A thing that I've heard them do, like when my mom's been in the hospital more recently, is before she has an operation or whatever, they'll ask what a normal, like on the pain scale, what a like tolerable number is for her. So that way they have that to compare to afterwards instead, which I'm like, that makes so much more sense than just like this vague scale that means something different to everyone.
Yeah, because like, you know, I feel like my baseline pain every day is probably like between at least a 3 to 5, but then when it's like worse, I'm like, am I being too dramatic to say that it's a 7 or an 8? I like that they're at least changing that. That's, you know, they're trying, I guess.
Or like I remember too, they added like charts with words, like adjectives to help describe your pain. That was good too.
Another thing that like triggers me is like anytime I get like a warm sheet.
The warm blankets,
The warm blankets. Like I remember getting a warm blanket, like literally like when I got my nails done and she puts the warm towel over my hands afterwards to like help the lotion soak in more. I'm like, wow, this is just like when I was in the hospital and they put a warm blanket on me, or like a warm blanket from out of the dryer. Was always a big, like, I have to remind myself that I'm not in the hospital right now.
Right? Oh my God. My other big one is like cast saw sounds or similar sounds. So like even just like a fucking table saw sound is kind of similar, and I'm like, yuck. I'm like, ugh, I don't like that. But yeah, no, hospital smell sucks. Because it just means you've spent too fucking long there. Like, specifically, like, when you, like, the smell when you, like, are, because you can't smell it while you're there. It's when you come home and you can smell it on you.
Yes, or just like that first day when you wake up in that room. Because like whenever I'd be in the hospital, just because of admission and things like that, it's like I would end up waking up and the hospital, like I would end up like going to bed like really late in the hospital that night and then waking up in the morning for like my first full day. And that was always like, well, like I feel like that's what I remember the smells the most.
Oh.
Another triggering thing to me is Valentine's Day. Because I think I spent Valentine's Day in the hospital on 2 separate occasions.
Oh, wow.
So, like, I've always thought of, like, the decorations in the hospital rooms for Valentine's Day of the really cheesy red and pink hearts and stuff like that. But I was like, and again, of, like, those girls before making me friendship bracelets and stuff like that and, like, Valentine's Day stuff and give me Valentine's Day candy. I'm like, the first time people gave me Valentine's Day candy, I was in the hospital.
Aww. Well, one miscellaneous thing that I forgot to mention in our first episode related to my existence is that I don't have a normal nose. I think it's related to just, like, missing cartilage in other places in my body. Like, I'm assuming that's why, like, I can bend my hands flat to my wrists, like I was saying and stuff. I assume there's, like, cartilage or something missing there. And because I think missing cartilage is, like, related to my specific, like, gene mutation or whatever, and so in my nose, like, you can push my nose flat, and also I have literally no nose bridge at all. Like, I have, like, obviously the bone that's between your eyes, but, like, it doesn't stick out, like, it's just there, like, it doesn't slope out to be a nose, and then, yeah, I can push my nose flat, so I don't know if I could ever break my nose. I could break the bone between my eyes, but I don't think I can break my nose because there's nothing in there to break.
Wow. It's interesting to think about and then seeing you wear glasses.
Yeah, well, and every time I go to the optometrist or whatever, they're like, yeah, you have to have glasses with nose pads because that's the only way they're going to stay up your face, which I recently, that was the other thing. I got my glasses readjusted in the past week, and it's like, oh my God, having my nose pads pushed back where they're supposed to be, it's like, oh, my glasses stay up where they're supposed to. How life-changing is that? I'm like, I usually get so much sunscreen from my face onto the bottoms of my glasses, and it's like, oh, now that they're fixed, my glasses don't even touch my cheeks.
Oh man, I should have had them tighten my glasses when I saw my optometrist because there's a screw loose on one side and I just never did anything about it.
Oh yeah, the like arms on my glasses were so loose that I found myself, the morning I was going, I found myself shaking them open because they were so loose, and now I have to like manually, very aggressively close them and open them because they're nice and stiff how they're supposed to be.
Wow.
But hopefully my prescription sunglasses will be in soon, and
yes.
I'll really be thriving.
Yes, that's why I'm like not too worried about my glasses because I got my contacts I could wear.
True.
Well, on the final segment of the pod, we are begging to answer the question, Cassie, how are you really? What's going on?
This past week's been such a whirlwind. I haven't had much of a chance to psychoanalyze myself, but I feel like I'm doing okay. I think, I'm going into the final week of the term, and I think generally, I don't know. I think school's good. I think things are pretty good right now. I don't have therapy until towards the end of the month because I was able to space it out more once I stabilized. But I think kind of the main thing I'm probably grappling with right now is just being like, okay, I'm having fun. I'm spending more time on myself, but like, I think it still bothers me that I can't and am not really doing any organizing stuff. I don't know. I think it's like so hard for me to not feel guilty because I'm like, I am having fun. I am spending time on myself. So in my mind, I'm like, well, I could be spending that time doing stuff to organize, save the fucking world, and I'm like, oh my God, there's just so little time in the day, and I don't know. I don't know. I need to talk to more people about it and get their thoughts, how they balance things, how they do this, because I'm just like, I don't know how, hate that life balance is something I just continue to struggle with.
Yeah.
But I don't know, because it's like I found myself like being inspired to like write songs and stuff this weekend, and I was just like, man, like I really love doing this stuff, but it's just like, it's so hard that it feels like it's the difference between like actually taking full care of myself or like doing work that I feel like really matters, and it just is hard. But I'm doing really well because I've been having so much fun, and I just wish that the world didn't need saving.
The life balance thing is very hard to figure out, and it's something where like even when you do feel like you have it down, one thing goes disarray and it ruins the whole thing. Mm-hmm. Or you have one extra thing on your plate this week, so it's kind of harder to keep it under wraps. And and yeah, I do think like talking to other people, especially other people that organize, it's kind of just like, how do you guys do this? Like,
and I feel like the problem is the answer is that they don't balance. They either do too much or they wish they were doing more or whatever. And a lot of people don't balance. They swing to either end of the spectrum, and it's really rough because, surprise, surprise, the system is designed this way for us to not have the time to do everything we need to do, and it sucks.
Yeah, it's like you'll face this like inevitable burnout either way.
Well, and like you said, like one thing goes wrong or different. It's like, for me, it's almost like the fun stuff comes in kind of waves. Like, literally, I had, like last month I had, a fun weekend. And then it's like this month I had a fun weekend. And it's just kind of like, it just kind of comes randomly and like in kind of waves and not consistent. It's just hard.
Yeah, I can get that.
But I'm having fun.
Having fun, that's the most important part.
Damn right. And eating a lot of ice cream. So.
Yes. 100%. And seeing bands multiple times. I mean, listen, you're seeing Boy Genius soon.
It's still over a month away, but
it's still something very fun to look forward to.
Oh God, yeah, that's all I think about, really. Well, right now I'm fully focused on Louis in a couple of weeks, but
yes, true.
Yeah, no, I have so much to look forward to this summer, and I'm probably going to more soccer games because I can't help it. I love soccer, and they're cheaper than concerts.
Right? And it's a little fun outing. Like, I get it. It's a lot more like, you don't have to be so emotionally invested into it.
Yeah, exactly. How are you really?
How am I really? God only knows. I feel like I go through these phases of just like being really like in tune with my life, and then just being like, oh my God, a month went by. Like, that's kind of how I've been feeling. I am excited to get back into doing markets and stuff. There's a spider on my cable on my laptop.
I thought you were going to say it deleted the whole episode.
No. Oh my God, no. I don't know what to do.
Live narration, Mariah is murdering a spider.
I got it. I didn't want to have to do that. But
Mariah killed a spider live on the pod.
No, I took a life.
Jesus. How are you really now?
God, that like adrenaline spike was very scary there. Because at first I thought it was a tick. Ooh. And I hate ticks. They gross me out. And I have a pure fear of them. I usually take ticks and I burn them with a lighter because I hate them that much. So I was like, damn, I don't have a lighter on me right now to burn this tick in my room. It's a spider. Anyway, yeah, I mean, like, that's why I kind of like have markets and stuff to look forward to. And like markets that like, I hate to say it, but I know are going to be good shows to do because I feel very inspired to make things. I feel inspired to just like be there. So like I have 2 coming up that I'm looking forward to. One is at like, I mean, by the time you listen to this markets will already have happened, but it's at an outside like beach bar by me called the Sandbox, and it has really good food trucks. So I'm looking forward to like having a lobster roll as I vend, and like drink, just like being outside and being in that like general area in that vicinity with other vendors and just like having a good time.
Yeah.
And also like I love drunk people because they spend their money like it's nobody's business.
Yep.
And I just like, I don't know, I do feel like a bit more creatively inspired. And I think it's because of like that me making those vendor display things for my table. Like I feel like a little bit more like, oh wow, like I can do this. I can actually, you know, like feel excited about my business and to do things like this. And which kind of sucks that like I feel like this now in June, because like in July I'm not going to have too much going on because I'm going to be on vacation, which will take up like 2 weekends because it's like a weekend. And in August it's really hot, so I don't really like to do vendor events outside. But I don't know. I'm just hoping that I can kind of just like keep this momentum going and maybe do a website update for y'all that don't live in New Jersey. I'm also planning on visiting my friend in Connecticut soon, and we're going to go to Boston and get a tattoo. And I'm very excited for that. I want to get like a little Korok from Breath of the Wild, the little like forest spirit critters. We were looking up some designs, and I saw like a really cute one of one sitting down, so I really want to get it. And I like always like the idea of getting a tattoo on like my bicep or like my forearm on like the inside. So I was like thinking like that's probably the place that I'll get it. And I don't know, I'm looking forward to the summer. I'm just being able to like spend time outside and a little bit more lax and like hopefully get back into reading and maybe go to the beach once or twice. But I guess I'm just like also trying to like reframe my perspective on life and realize like things are beautiful and I don't have to have a mental breakdown every day. There was 2 times this week where I woke up and had a panic attack on 2 separate days, and it was days where like I didn't sleep that well, so like I kind of felt like it really started my day off on a bad foot, and I was like sleep deprived the entire day as well. And I don't know, sometimes when that happens to me, I don't know how to get out of it, and I don't know how to just like help reframe my perspective and stuff afterwards. Yeah. Like it's kind of like something that like will ruin my whole day, no matter if I let it or not. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, life is all about balance.
Yeah, and I really hear you in the terms of having stuff to look forward to. That's actually something I did talk about last time in therapy. It was just like, it's actually like hard though, at least for me, to still like look forward to stuff and like invest emotional energy into stuff happening in the future, because COVID taught me to not be like, nothing is predictable. Like, right. You know, don't trust, you know, things too far out in the future. And I even think about that with like you planning to come visit next year. I like whenever I find myself getting excited about it, I'm like, Cassie, the world could fucking explode between now and then. Chill out. Like, I hope not. It's just like it just like sucks. Like because I like literally having stuff to look forward to does keep me going, and so it's like it's really hard to find that balance of okay, but what if it's like what if something happens, but also not being a fucking nihilist, you know.
And yeah, not letting it ruin your whole mood about it. Because, like, I do get that. Like, there's some times where I'm looking forward to something, and then, like, a week before that thing, I'm like, oh my god, what if this goes wrong? Like, what if something bad happens? And I'm like, you know, what if something bad happens? What am I gonna do? I can't stop it. Like, you know, I try to just, like, I don't know. It's something that, like, it's, like, helpful to work on, but I don't know how the hell to work on it. And that's why I was even thinking, like, for coming out to visit you, I'm like, that's why I gotta get my Amtrak tickets when I can, because I'm like, this way, we know it's, like, pretty much solidified after that point, unless the world explodes. You fall
deathly ill.
I fall deathly ill and I just don't make it. And you'll be coming to New Jersey for a funeral.
Oh, God. That's not how we're meeting.
That would be horrible.
Yeah.
That would be the worst. That would easily be the worst thing in the world.
That would be really... Okay, so now that we've catastrophized that much, we know it'll be better than that.
Yes.
No, because I literally, lately, all the fun things I've been doing, I'm like, wish Mariah was here.
Dude, that's like, sometimes I do things and I'm like, it sounds crazy. I think about you like everywhere.
I know, literally.
I'm like, man, like right now I'd love to hang out with Cassie. Like I would love to just sit in my room with Cassie and like read books. It's like, what's the thing, like parallel play? Like that's us. Like yes. Just doing things next to each other, but like not the same thing. Yeah. Like I don't know, I think about that, or I just think about like wanting to just go out to lunch with someone or go out to get food. And I'm like, I wish I was with Cassie right now.
I know.
Like, I tried a fun new drink. I wish I could bring this to Cassie.
I did just try a sparkling ice strawberry lemonade that I caught at the wedding yesterday.
Oh my
so
God.
I just finished that. And I had never had one of the sparkling ice drinks, and now I'm like, oh, I'm hooked.
Is it like sparkling juice?
It's flavored sparkling water. So it's like a whole 5 calories, but it somehow has like vitamins and stuff in it.
I've had those before. I don't know if I like them or not, though. I see them at Target. I never reach for them. I have with me today is a 1-liter Dasani water bottle that I got at the movies yesterday. That this water bottle was like $6. So I was like, you bet I'm finishing the whole thing. I'm not just going to feed it to my plants today. So I'm almost done with it. But it's very comically large. But it makes sense because, I mean, if you're eating popcorn, that's very salty. So you're drinking a lot of water.
Yeah.
Also, I was like, a liter-sized water bottle makes sense for being $6, but not a 16-ounce smart water bottle, which was also the same price.
You tell them.
Ugh, the movies rip you off. I spent like $20 on just snacks.
You will, and that has been my mantra this year is who gives a fuck, I'm buying this. Which may be problematic for future me that won't be able to afford that forever. But actually, no. I've decided all my financial goals now revolve around being able to afford snacks.
No, I agree. Sometimes, like, when I go somewhere, I'm like, I'm gonna get a fun treat because, well, I didn't even talk about this week. What? I can't believe I didn't talk about it. Me locking my keys in my running car.
Holy shit.
Oh my God.
Tell the people. Tell the people.
So I literally can't believe I didn't talk about this because I was like, what did I do this week?
You
erased an entire day. I literally blocked it out.
The trauma.
So on Thursday, I went to work and I park in the same accessibility spot, like kind of a little bit down the street from my job. And like at the time that I was parking there, they were doing a lot of construction. And it was very loud and overstimulating. And I was also very attentive to the fact that they put up this new fencing next to the spot. And I was like really thrown off by it because I was like, if you had a van that needed to unload a wheelchair or like a scooter, you would have to strategically park in this spot to avoid that fencing. Because I was like, that's like, why would they even put that there? You're putting it against like a tree. And it's like, you really don't need it there. People's dogs are going to piss on that tree whether that fence is there or not. So I was very attentive to that. And I was also just like a little bit overstimulated in that moment because like I was late to work. My brother had to get something in the back of my car. So it was this whole thing. And I ended up just getting out of the car, locking my doors. But like the thing is with my car is I don't have a button on the keys that locks the keys. I have to manually lock and unlock each door. So when I go up to the door, I got to put the key in the door, to turn it, unlock it, get in the car, and then if someone else is getting on the passenger side, lean over and pull up the thing on the other side to let the person in. So when I was getting out of the car, it's just a habitual thing of when I open the door, the first thing I do is I open the door and I lock the door. So this way when I get out, I shut it and it's already locked. So I locked that door, my brother locked his door, and I'm walking to work, not even realizing that my car is still running. But it's because, again, it was so loud in that environment that I couldn't tell that it was still running. So I'm at my job, I'm in work, 2 hours go by, and I was like, oh, I have to go get something for my car. And I'm looking for my keys, and I couldn't find my car keys. And all I could think was, like, I dropped my keys outside my car. My keys are on the seat in my car. Like, somebody could have easily stolen my car. So then I was walking to the parking spot, and I was like, if my car's not there, what am I going to do? Like, if my car got stolen, what am I going to do? So I go up to my car. It's still there, and it's running. My eyes go right to my keys in the ignition, and I'm like, holy shit, I've left my keys in my car with the car running for the past, 2, almost 3 hours now at this point. And, I really wasn't that upset by it. Honestly, I was kind of shocked that I was just so stupid and I did that I was kind of just staring at my car, acting like my eyes were just going to magically make it open. But I was also a little bit of hysterical laughing because I was just my brain was deteriorating in that moment because I just didn't know what to do. And I go back into my job and I was freaking out. I was like, I left my keys in my car. My car's running. I locked my keys in my car and my car is running. So I ended up having to call my mom and she brought me my spare. And I had to, like, we were able to unlock the car, things were fine, but, like, I didn't have a lot of gas. So I was like, the worst case scenario was that my car was going to run out of gas, and I would have needed to fill the car up, have someone go get gas, fill a canister up for me and bring it back, or, like, that, and, like, have someone jumpstart my car. Like, I was like, there's a lot of things that are going wrong right now that could easily just go worse. And it turned out to be fine. I mean, like, people lock their keys in their car all the time, but just locking your keys in the car while the car is running is a new level of, like, what the fuck? So I was, things were fine, and all I did was, like, when I was leaving work was I got gas, and then I just, like, was able to go home, but I was just so bamboozled that I did that.
You got.
I got. I literally got by myself.
Damn.
Like, I really screwed myself over that moment. And I literally was like, because I was like, if somebody saw my car running, like, my coworker was like, oh, we could try to, like, get the door open. And I'm like, the thing is that, like, if you try to get the door open and we break the door, I just don't have time. And I also don't want to go get my door fixed. Like, I don't want to have to go spend money to get my door fixed. Like, and, you can't call the police in scenarios like this because it's not an emergency. It's not like there's a child in the car or anything, or a pet where, like, it was a hazard. But all I could think of was, like, during that time that my mom was bringing me my spare, I was like, what if someone tries to break into my car and steals it? Like, I kept kind of walking outside to make sure that it was still there. But I did enjoy those blissful 2 hours of that, unaware of that even happened to me, and my car was just outside running.
Oh my God.
And two is that I would have been more upset if my car got stolen, because I had all my vendor supplies in my car from the event that I did 2 days before that. So, like, if my car got taken, I would have lost, like, all the stuff that I use for display pieces and stuff for my table. So it would have made this so much worse, because now I would have had to cancel the event that I did over the weekend, because there's no way I was going to able to find a bunch of stuff to use to put on my table.
And here at the Cassie and Mariah Studios, we fucking love to catastrophize.
Yes, man. Like, we just talked about me dying. Like, we have to make this the worst case scenario.
Damn right. Oh my God. No, that's I hate that I'm such a problem solver, though, because, like, when you told me the story, I was like, you could call a locksmith. a AAA.
I guess just in that moment, I wasn't really sure what my options were, because I was very stressed. I was very upset. Yeah. And, like, I don't know if my mom has AAA, but I don't know if I'm, like, under her plan. Like, I don't remember signing up or paying for this.
So probably not.
No, exactly.
Because
she has a card.
Yeah, so my mom has had a card, and the thing is, the card is only associated with the person, not with a vehicle. Okay. And so whenever my brother would lock himself out of his car on an extremely regular basis, I would have to drive her to him so she could pretend that she was with him, so he could use her AAA to get his keys out of his car. It was very annoying, and she bought him. The thing is, if you can add, like you said, you can add family to it, and so, like, it's way cheaper to just add somebody to the main plan, and so she got him his own, so that way I don't have to keep driving to him and helping him out. And so, and then she also just switched her card to my name, because that makes so much more sense, because I'm the one driving everywhere now. And it's like, especially going on longer drives places lately, that it's like, oh, if something were to happen, like, you literally wouldn't be able, you can't drive, so you wouldn't be able to come and help me out.
Yeah, because like in that sense, it's like, if my mom had to drive so I can call AAA myself, it's like, at that point, just bring me my spare key. Like,
exactly. Yeah, but no, I highly recommend, like, getting something like that, so that way, if you're in a bind, you're not screwed. Even if because then if you ran out of gas and you needed jump starting and you needed your key out, they could have done all three. This is not sponsored, but they could have done all three.
Exactly. Well, that's a wrap on this week's episode. Be sure to follow the Cassie and Mariah Show wherever you listen to podcasts, at TCMSPod on Twitter and Instagram, and look out for new episodes every Wednesday.
Bye.